With me is the Economy Minister of Israel, who is here in India. So welcome to Wion. And my first question to you is, what's your key focus during this India visit? You're the first minister to come to India under the current government of Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, Sid, thank you very much for honoring me. Indeed, I'm here to see how we could collaborate and improve the relationship and the economy of both countries. Naturally, Israel and the Indian people have a lot in common. For 2,000 years, Jews feel very comfortable living in India, feeling secure, loved. Many Israelis, like my daughter, after the army, come to India to have fun. And there's a big love from Israelis to the Indian people, and I believe it's mutual. Naturally, we share a lot in common, and that people-to-people relationship is very strong. I also want to add that the government-to-government is very strong. Both Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu have really good relationship, and the governments understand that we have a lot in common and a lot to cooperate. Having said that, now our goal is how do we have more and more business development together? How do we grow our economy? We understand in Israel that India is going to be very soon the third largest economy in the world, and we want to help you get there. And we want to make sure that Israel and India collaborate together for the benefit of growth of both people.
During your India visit, you're going to meet Indian ministers as well. What kind of conversation you're looking at when it comes to increasing the trade volume between the two countries?
Well, naturally, it's focusing on how we could help each other. Israel's very strong on technology, innovation, new ideas, new ways of thinking. And naturally, India is very powerful on the economy of scale, of growth. We know how to collaborate with the governments that complement the Israeli skills. And I'm here to see how can we work together in areas like security. Israel is at the forefront of security, counterterrorism. We know how to have really good defense. We're also very good at having good offense, very offensive methods of counterterrorism. Israel is very strong on what we call desert tech, agrotech, food tech, creating food from the sea. We're now looking at areas like this. And while we're only 10 million people strong, just less than 10 million, naturally, India with 1.4 billion people have to work in collaboration with us to scale the ideas that we have. So I believe that working together side by side, the Israeli technology and the scale of India, working together, we could help each other to improve our economies.
So you mentioned about security. If you can talk about it, elaborate on that specific sector, what kind of cooperation both countries can have and what kind of trade both countries can have, if you can talk about that.
Well, sure. Technology makes a huge difference in understanding how to better secure yourself. Technology has a big, huge cluster in Israel. Cybersecurity, 25% of all companies in the world in cybersecurity are fundamentally Israelis. Naturally, because we have our threats, we've developed and outsmart our enemies in terror and in other challenges we have. And we're willing to share those ideas with our friends here in India, because the relationship between the two countries is such that there's a lot of trust and love between the people. So we can rely on partners like India to share those ideas to how to counter terror. Now, counterterrorism, terror is not only an Israeli challenge, it's a global challenge. We have our challenges from our terrorists, but you have them, and unfortunately other places in the world have similar challenges. So we've also learned that the best way to challenge terror is not just being reactive and in security, but also being very offensive and going after the terrorists at their home, at their base, to bring and shift the terror from us to other places. So cybersecurity is a major issue. We are very strong in satellites. We're very strong in creating new kind of tools to have better security. This is area that we already have good collaboration with India. I believe it will scale in a big way.
So India-Israel free trade agreement is something that has been the buzz. Everyone has been trying to talk about it. What is the status like, and when do you think that this free trade agreement can be concluded?
Well, I'm going to raise this with my meetings with the peer ministers here. But it's not just a free trade agreement. It's a lot of collaboration between business clusters that are successful in Israel and successful here. It's a lot of business development. And it's a lot together. One of the things I've been speaking to some business people here is how do we get the business community engaged in on-the-job training and in the education system. See, because when you want to have a swift growth, one of the challenges you're going to have, which is the challenge that we have, is how do we swift skills? 50% of the labor force in India is in agriculture. When you adopt technology, you will see a swift decrease in the number of people focusing on agriculture. So how do you retrain them and refocus them on futuristic jobs versus in the past jobs? In Israel, once we had 50% of our people are farmers. Today, 5% of the Israeli public are farmers. And that swift decrease of farmers, and it's not that we create less food, we create more food, but we have to retrain the people to future jobs. This is one of the challenges we're going to share with India, the Israeli experience of changing and swifting from old, ancient skills and jobs to new futuristic jobs.
But I mean, when it comes to the FTA, I mean, if you can talk about the details regarding the conversations that might have happened. I mean, in the past also there were conversations. So what's new this time? How optimistic you are when it comes to the free trade agreement?
Well, I think that both India and Israel has made more and more free trade agreements lately in the last few years. And we both recognize how the collaboration between Israel and India could boost and scale our growth. And that's why I believe, at least I'm going to be raising to my peers here in the government, the value of free trade agreements, how they could decrease all kinds of obstacles and improve the collaboration between the two people. And it's not just people-to-people relationship, which is excellent, and the love. We see you folks as brothers in this region. And it's not just the government-to-government relationship between Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu. It's also about how we can create the infrastructure that more business-to-business will be made, more education-to-education, more trade of labor and skills between the two people. And there's no doubt in my mind that it will happen faster than people think, because it's in the best interest of both countries.
How do you see rise of India? I mean, you pointed out India will be the third largest economy, and there's a lot of optimism regarding that. Rise of India impacting West Asia, countries in the West Asian region.
I'm very happy because I believe that the relationship we have is we're going to benefit from it, because we can help you get there. The opportunity for India, because of its size, and right now I see the shifts happening. I think the government here is doing a phenomenal job on understanding the opportunity and leading the country for more and more open markets, Western world thinking, more collaboration. The I2U2 is a great example of that. How do we, the United States and India and the United Emirates and Israel can collaborate for the benefit of all four partners involved here. I think that kind of relationship is a booster. It will help us boost and swiftly move for better economies. In Israel, I'm really focused on growth. And growth for Israel has to do in more and more collaboration with other major countries in the world. So the fact that now India is becoming a superpower, and I believe in a few years from now, you're going to be the third largest economy in the world. That's wow. And so working with Israel and India together will help us grow, and I believe will help you grow faster than not.
And how do you see the Indian Prime Minister's leadership in terms of bringing Israel and India closer? He has been to Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been to India, and we have seen since 2014 the relationship taking a different level altogether.
Indeed, and that's why I'm here. This is one of my first trips as a new Minister of Economy and Industry. I understand the potential of collaboration with India, and I had missions coming from India to my office in Israel. And sort of when we start getting down to the details, that, for example, creating food from the sea, there's a really great research done in Israel of how to take bluefin tuna, for example, and domesticate bluefin tuna and grow the numbers much, much more than people can ever imagine, in numbers much bigger than what we collect from the sea today. We know how to optimize the initial phases of increasing the ability of the little eggs to become big fish, okay? But to scale big numbers, we need partners like India that know how to take and scale big numbers of creating food from the sea. So these are futuristic ideas that working together, taking the skills and the scale of your economy and the entrepreneurial ideas of our economy, and that's where 1 + 1 = 3. And so we could actually together provide to the world new ideas, new initiatives in food production from the sea, in agrotech, and desert tech. How do we create better life in deserts? And many, many new ideas that are coming in Israel, and we need that partnership for the benefit of the world to enjoy.
And are we looking at trading in national currencies? I mean, this is something that India has been focusing on with many countries. I mean, trading in national currencies instead of dollar as one of the reserves. I mean, this has been focused at least in the Asian region.
Well, these are details. I mean, details we could solve. The motivation is there. The love between the people, the understanding that we go back thousands of years and we can rely on each other for futuristic and new ideas. We know that when India will grow and scale, the relationship between the two countries are stable and we could build on them. In other words, we can rely on the relationship with India, and I believe India can rely on the relationship with Israel, which would be sustainable, long-term, positive. So there's no risk associated with relationships between Israel and India. There's only a big upside. So we should focus on that right now. For me, as a minister, when I go back home, I'm going to convey to my government and my prime minister and my people, the people of Israel, how beautiful and how big the opportunity is to work with one of the fastest growing economies in the world.
There are little concerns as well. That's Adani. I mean, Adani has invested in a port in Israel, which was much talked about, but Adani has been not in very positive news as well. Do you have any concerns regarding Adani's investments in Israel?
No, I think that we're proud of the fact that an Indian businessman invested in Israel, the fact that Israel accepted that investment in a positive way. There's only good complimentary things I hear in Israel about Adani and that investment. It actually is a good testimony that when we do business in each other's country, it's accepted well. So we look at the positive here, and you know, there's only positive in that perspective.
So now coming to much more domestic, your country was in news for a lot of protests against the government. If you can talk about the current situation and how has it has impacted the stability of the government.
Well, I'm very proud of our democracy. When you think about Israel's democracy, the fact that people care and they go out in the street and demonstrate, some of them for the reforms we proposed, because we believe the reforms will make us a better democracy. Some object to it and they feel concerned. The fact that people are willing to go out in the street and is a big testimony for our democracy. We will overcome. The Jewish people, the Israeli people know how to overcome differences of opinions. We're an exciting democracy, and I look at this in a positive way. Very few democracies in the world have that kind of care. We have that in France, you see now. People go out to the street in France for many reasons. In England, the Brexit, some were half of the population was for and against. In America, you see the Democrats and the Republicans sometimes have differences of opinions. It's totally legitimate to have these kinds of challenges in a democracy. I see the good side of it. We will manage it.
But has it impacted the stability of the government and the leadership of the Prime Minister Netanyahu? Because it's after a long time that Netanyahu has dealt with such a strong wave of protest in your country.
We understand that there are challenges in our country, in a democracy, and I believe you'll see that the Prime Minister, and I will support them on this, has to consider the different opinions in the country and work out, when we talk about infrastructure ideas in our democracy, our goal is to make them as wide accepted as possible. And I believe that you will see that we will overcome the majority of these challenges. You know why? Because we have no choice. We're a strong democracy. We want to thrive and succeed, and we all understand eventually that we need to come together, certainly against threats in Israel and for the benefit of our future. So I see this as a very interesting challenge in a democratic state, but I'm proud of our democracy, and there's no doubt in my mind that we'll overcome it, like other major democracies has overcome challenges and differences of opinions.
Now coming to an issue that perhaps has been a long-standing one, we saw the flare-up in Palestine. We saw missile attack coming from one of your neighboring countries. If you can talk about what's the situation as to your neighbors and where is it going?
Well, I think that unfortunately we have terrorists challenging Israel. And by the way, they're supported by the regime in Iran, using proxies in Hamas in Lebanon, Hezbollah in Lebanon, we have Hamas in Gaza, we have challenges from Iraq with long-term missiles in Syria, and we have internal challenges in Judea and Samaria and others. I recommend our enemies to reconsider their thoughts, because if, God forbid, they decide to challenge us, we're going to hit them very hard. And they have to understand that while there's maybe internal challenges in Israel, when it comes to uniting against our enemies that want to combat and fight us, we know how to hit them extremely hard. We have the best technology, the best counterterrorism mechanisms in the world, and we will not be afraid to use them against people that want to hit innocent Israelis. You know, the rockets around Israel are targeted at cities, at women and children. Just last week, we had unfortunately, three women from the same family, two girls, two sisters and their mother, that were killed by terrorists. They were just shot dead, which is terrible. I mean, innocent people. On the other hand, what we do is we only target militants. The militants and the terrorists hide behind innocent people. But we do everything we can not to hit any civilians, but only to target the militants and the terrorists that want to hit Israel. And so we're using offensive measures. And rather than we protect ourselves in our backyard, they have to focus on their own security in their backyard. And we're not afraid to go into their backyard and find those terrorists and kill them if needed, before they use terror against us. These are methods that have developed in Israel, and they're relevant not just for counterterrorism against Israel. I mean, they're all over the world, and our methods we share with our partners like India.
I was coming to that point. You share with partners like India. So how Israel has been helping India in terms of combating the issue of terrorism? You have elaborated in your replies earlier, but India also deals with these kind of problems, missile attack, drones from across the border. Cross-border terrorism has been a major issue for India. So how has Israel helped India?
There are things that are not going to be discussed over the press, Sid. I prefer that rather than we speak about it and give knowledge to our enemies, that sharing of knowledge and information and exchange of ideas and weaponry should not be done over the TV. But trust me, I know that the collaboration is very, very strong, and we will help in all ways possible to help India become a stronger, more independent, better economy, and of course, more secure.
So you're the first minister from the current government to come to India. Can we expect more ministers? And can we expect Prime Minister Netanyahu to come? Because in the past, he has been trying to come, but for some unfortunate reason, his visit has got delayed or postponed or cancelled.
My strong recommendation when I go back home is to speak to my peer ministers and to better explain to them the opportunity. And we must, there's no shortcuts here. We need to collaborate and exchange knowledge and information and make an ecosystem even stronger and better, leverage what we have to make it much, much better. And when I look into the future, I see a very bright future for the cooperation between the two countries. And this is not going to be my last meeting because, the effectiveness of a meeting, of coming here, is huge for me. And I really now understand how to better structure the relationship, how to better guide my teams back in Israel, and what the message I will bring back to the business community in Israel on the opportunity they have doing business here in India. Mind you, said that when I was younger, I was an entrepreneur. I did a lot of work in the at the beginning of the 90s and collaborated in doing business in the United States. At the beginning, at the early stages of 1990s, doing business in America was a little bit rough. And then once we resolved how to do business in America, the quality and the quantity of work in America is huge. I have a deja vu. I believe that we're now structuring the relationship between the two governments so that businesses could swiftly flow and make it easier for businesses to work together. And as big as the opportunity that Israel has with the United States, we could develop that opportunity with one of the superpowers, the economic superpowers of the future, which is India. And because the relationship between the Indian people and the Jewish people in Israel is so good, the fact that this could happen faster than anything else depends on us. It's ours to lose. We'll do everything we can to make this happen.
So my last question to you is, you started by mentioning it, how Jews have been in India for centuries.
2,000 years.
2,000 years, and there hasn't been any violence against them. I mean, what's the view you have? If you can elaborate it, because this is something that we have heard, but since you are here, I would like to ask the question again.
Well, both Israelis and Jews and Indian people have a long history, a long memory. And once that memory is only positive, unfortunately we have memories in Europe just 70 plus years ago. We remember the Holocaust. And we remember how the Indian people protected the Jewish people throughout the tough times we always had. We never forget our history. We have, the future, if you want to have a good future, look backwards in retrospect and see who you could trust. So the fact that both countries could trust each other and love each other. My daughter was here after she served in the army, and I came to visit her here. And so many young Israelis love to go to India to get some, time off and to learn from the Indian people. There's something very smart in the way the Indians operate. And so I believe that once those relationships are so deep into the past, it means that they're going to be very deep and very positive into the future. This is something you learn from the past. And I'm really, really grateful for the fact that I can represent Israel here and thank the Indian people, not only for the past and not only for the present, but actually together discuss a better future.
Well, thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking to you and get your views about where this relationship goes forward. And you must be knowing that there's a lot of positive vibes for Israel here in India, and I think vice versa as well.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.